She was the Iron Lady of New York real estate, Evelyn Sinclair, a woman worth $3 billion who could crush competitors with a single phone call. But every night she went home to a silent mansion and a 6-year-old daughter who hadn't spoken a single word since the accident. Doctors said it was permanent. Therapists gave up. Evelyn was losing hope. Until a Tuesday afternoon, a broken swing set and a rugged carpenter named Jack changed everything. You won't believe what he did to make the mute girl speak, or the dark secret from Evelyn's past that was about to tear them apart. This is the story of the day the silence broke. The boardroom on the 45th floor of the Sinclair and Company. Tower was cold, precisely 68 degrees, just how Evelyn Sinclair liked it. It kept people alert. It kept them on edge. The acquisition of the Henderson logistics chain is non-negotiable. Evelyn said, her voice smooth, but cutting like a diamond gliding over glass. She didn't look up from the file in front of her. She didn't have to. She knew every man in the room was staring at her, waiting for a crack in the armor. But Ms. Sinclair started Thomas Grayson, her CFO, a man who had been sweating through his Armani suits since the 90s. The liquidity required. It puts us in a precarious position with the board. If the merger fails, the stock drops. If the stock drops, you'll find another job. Thomas Evelyn interrupted, finally raising her eyes. They were a piercing, icy blue, framed by lashes that seemed too long to be natural, though they were. I don't pay you to tell me what I can't do. I pay you to move the money where I tell you. Meeting adjourned. She stood up. The movement was a signal. 12 men in expensive suits scrambled to gather their papers and vacate the premises. Evelyn didn't watch them leave. She walked to the floor-to-ceiling window looking out over Manhattan. It was raining, a grey sheet of water washing over the city, turning the yellow taxis below into blurred streaks of light. $3 billion. That was the latest valuation of her empire. She owned hotels in Dubai, shipping lanes in the Pacific, and tech startups in Silicon Valley. She was 34 years old and arguably the most powerful woman in the city. And she would trade every single cent of it to hear her daughter say, "Mommy, just one more time." Her phone buzzed on the mahogany table. It wasn't her work phone. Only 3 people had this number. Mrs. Gable Nanny. Evelyn picked it up on the first ring. "Is she okay?" "She's fine." Ms. Sinclair. Mrs. Gable's voice was kindly but tired. The woman was a saint, a 60-year-old British matron who had raised half the upper-crust children in Kensington before moving to New York. Physically, she is fine, but she's having one of her days. She's sitting by the window again. She hasn't touched her lunch, not even the macaroons from La Durée. Evelyn closed her eyes, pressing her forehead against the cold glass of the window. "I'm coming home, but the gala tonight. Cancel it. Ms. Sinclair. That's the mayor's charity ball. You're the guest of honor." I said, "Cancel it, Mrs. Gable. Tell them I have the flu. Tell them I have the plague. I don't care." Evelyn hung up and grabbed her trench coat. Her assistant, a sharp young woman named Sarah, tried to intercept her in the hallway. "Evelyn, Mr. Sterling is on line 1. He says it's about the custody addendum." Evelyn froze. The name Richard Sterling still had the power to send a jolt of pure hot rage down her spine. Her ex-husband, the biological father who had looked at his traumatized, silent daughter 2 years ago and decided she was too much work before running off with a paralegal half his age. Now that Sinclair and Company was hitting record profits, suddenly Richard was very interested in being a father again. "Tell Richard," Evelyn said, her voice dropping an octave, "that if he calls this office again, I will buy his law firm, fire him, and turn the building into a cat shelter. Is that clear?" Sarah blinked, then nodded vigorously. "Crystal." 20 minutes later, Evelyn's black Maybach pulled up to the service entrance of the penthouse building on Park Avenue. She bypassed the doorman, ignoring his polite greeting, and took the private elevator straight to the penthouse. The apartment was silent. It was a masterpiece of modern design, white marble floors, abstract art that cost more than most houses, and furniture that looked beautiful but was impossible to relax on. It was a museum, not a home. Lily Evelyn called out, softening her voice. She found them in the sunroom. Mrs. Gable was knitting in the corner, looking relieved to see her employer. And there, sitting on the sprawling window seat, was Lily. 6 years old, tiny for her age. She had Evelyn's blonde hair, but it was tangled today. She was wearing a princess dress that cost $2,000, clutching a ragged stuffed rabbit that had missing fur on its ears. Lily didn't turn around. She was staring at the rain hitting the glass. "Hi, baby Evelyn," whispered, sitting down next to her. She reached out and stroked Lily's hair. Lily leaned into the touch slightly, but she didn't make a sound. She didn't smile. Her eyes, big and brown like Richard's, were vacant. It had been 2 years since the car accident. The physical scars had healed. The doctors couldn't find any neurological reason for the silence. Selective mutism, they called it. Post-traumatic stress. "She's locked inside." Evelyn thought her heart breaking for the 1,000th time. "And I don't have the key." "It's raining a lot, huh?" Evelyn said, trying to keep her voice cheerful. "Mrs. Gable says you didn't eat lunch." Lily shrugged. "Do you want to go to the toy store? We can buy that Lego castle you looked at online." Lily shook her head. "Do you want to watch a movie? We can screen Frozen in the media room." "Nothing." Evelyn looked at Mrs. Gable, who offered a sad, sympathetic smile. "She's been watching the children across the street, Mrs. Sinclair. The ones in the park." Evelyn looked out the window. Across the avenue, tucked between the high-rises, was a small public playground. Even in the drizzle, there were a few kids running around in raincoats, splashing in puddles. Evelyn frowned. She didn't do public. Public meant paparazzi. Public meant judgment. Public meant people staring at the Ice Queen CEO and her broken daughter. But then she saw Lily press her small hand against the glass, tracing the movement of a boy on a swing. Evelyn made a decision. It was reckless. It was against her security protocol. But she was desperate. "Get her raincoat," Evelyn said. Standing up, "Miss Sinclair." "Mrs." Gable asked. "We're going out. No driver, no security detail. Just us, to the park. In this weather. Look at her, Mrs. Gable. She wants to be a normal kid. For 1 hour, I'm going to let her." The rain had tapered off to a misty drizzle by the time they reached the playground, but the grey sky kept the usual crowds away. The air smelled of wet asphalt and damp earth, a smell so foreign to Evelyn's sterilized, air-conditioned life that it felt almost exotic. Evelyn tightened the belt of her Burberry trench coat. She had swapped her heels for a pair of designer sneakers she had never actually worn, but she still felt ridiculously out of place. She felt like an alien observing a human habitat. "Okay, Lily." Evelyn said, kneeling down to zip up her daughter's pink rain jacket. "We're here. Which one do you want to do first?" Lily stood frozen at the gate. Her eyes darted around the playground. It wasn't the pristine private play area at her expensive prep school. There was graffiti on the slide. The mulch was uneven. A few discarded soda cans lay near the trash bin. But there were children. Real loud, messy children. A group of 3 boys were chasing each other near the monkey bars, screaming with laughter. A toddler was smashing a plastic shovel into a puddle, shrieking with delight as muddy water splattered everywhere. Lily took a step back and grabbed Evelyn's hand, gripping it so hard her knuckles turned white. "It's okay," Evelyn soothed, though her own heart was racing. She scanned the perimeter. No photographers. No one seemed to recognize her yet. They were just another mom and daughter, albeit one dressed in $50,000 worth of clothing. Lily pointed a trembling finger toward the sandbox. It was mostly empty, save for a few abandoned plastic molds. The sandbox. "Okay, let's go." They walked over. Evelyn checked the rim of the sandbox for anything dangerous. Glass needles, her paranoia flaring. It looked clean enough. She took a handkerchief from her pocket, spread it on the wooden edge, and sat down. Lily stepped gingerly into the sand. She didn't play immediately. She just stood there, clutching her rabbit, staring at her feet. "Go on, sweetie. You can make a castle." Evelyn encouraged, checking her watch. She felt exposed. Every time a parent looked in her direction, she stiffened, ready to deflect a question or a camera phone. Suddenly, a loud noise made them both jump. Coming through rocket ship landing. A boy, maybe 7 years old, came barreling off the slide and sprinted toward the sandbox. He was wearing a superhero cape made from a towel and mud-stained jeans. He didn't see Lily. "Watch out," Evelyn cried, half rising. The boy skidded to a halt just inches from Lily. Sand sprayed up, coating Lily's pristine raincoat and landing on her cheek. Lily flinched, dropping her rabbit into the wet sand. Her mouth opened in a silent gasp of terror. The boy blinked, panting. He had messy brown hair and a gap-toothed grin. "Whoa. Sorry, my brakes failed. Mechanical failure." He looked at Lily. "I'm Noah. Did I scare you?" Lily didn't move. She stared at the rabbit lying face down in the dirt. Her eyes began to fill with tears. "Hey, Noah. Easy on the landing, Space Cadet." The voice was deep, raspy, and filled with a warmth that seemed to cut through the damp chill of the afternoon. Evelyn turned. Walking toward them was a man who looked like he had been carved out of the very oak trees surrounding the park. He was tall with broad shoulders, clad in a faded flannel shirt, with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms dusted with sawdust. He wore work boots that had seen better days and dark denim jeans. He had a short, scruffy beard and eyes the color of warm amber. He wasn't handsome in the polished, manicured way the men in Evelyn's boardroom were. He was handsome in a way that felt dangerous and safe at the same time. He jogged over, wiping his hands on a rag he pulled from his back pocket. "Sorry about that, Mom," the man said to Evelyn, offering an apologetic smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "He thinks he's Buzz Lightyear today." He crouched down to Noah's level. "Noah, you gotta watch the flight path, buddy. You almost took out a civilian." "I said sorry, Dad." Noah said, looking at Lily. "Why doesn't she talk?" Evelyn stiffened. The question. The inevitable question. She stepped forward, her CEO armor sliding back into place. She prepared the standard cold response, she used to shut down inquisitive strangers. She prefers not to speak. Please give us space. But before she could get the words out, the man Jack did something unexpected. He didn't look at Evelyn. He looked at Lily. He didn't look at her with pity the way everyone else did. He looked at her with genuine curiosity. He saw the rabbit in the mud. "Oh, man," Jack said softly. "Man down." He reached out not to touch Lily, but to pick up the rabbit. He dusted the sand off it with surprising gentleness for a man with such large, rough hands. He inspected the rabbit's ear. "Looks like a minor injury," Jack said to Lily, his voice low and conspiratorial. "Nothing Dr. Jack can't fix, but I need approval from the owner." "Is this your first mate?" Lily stared at him. She blinked. Evelyn held her breath. Usually when strangers approached Lily, she hid behind Evelyn's legs, but she was standing her ground. She was watching his hands. "Jack," Evelyn said, her voice sharp. "Please, we don't need—" "Just a sec," Jack said, not rudely but firmly. He didn't look up at Evelyn. His focus was entirely on the little girl. He pulled a small red handkerchief from his pocket. He tied it around the rabbit's neck, like a superhero cape matching Noah's. "There," Jack said. "Now he's super too. See?" He held the rabbit out to Lily. Lily reached out slowly. Her small fingers brushed Jack's calloused palm as she took the toy. She hugged it to her chest. "He needs a name, though," Jack mused, tilting his head. "A super rabbit needs a super name. I'm thinking Thumper. No too cliché. How about Thunder?" He waited. Lily stared at him. The silence stretched. The tension in the air was palpable. Evelyn wanted to grab Lily and run. This was the part where it went wrong. This was the part where the pressure to speak made Lily shut down completely. "She doesn't speak," Evelyn said, her voice tight. "Come on, Lily. We're leaving." She reached for Lily's hand. "Wait," Jack said. He stood up, then towering over Evelyn. Up close, he smelled of pine wood and rain. He looked at Evelyn for the first time, and she felt a jolt of electricity that she hadn't felt in years. "She doesn't speak, or she hasn't spoken yet." "Excuse me." Evelyn bristled. "I don't see how that is your business." "I'm not trying to be rude," Jack said, holding up his hands in surrender. "My Noah. He didn't talk for a year after his mom died. Trauma does funny things to kids. It's like a knot. You can't pull it tight or it gets worse. You gotta tease it out." Evelyn felt a lump form in her throat. She swallowed it down. "I have the best doctors in the world working with her." "Doctors are great," Jack shrugged. "But sometimes you don't need a doctor. You need a distraction." He looked back at Lily. He winked. "I bet she has a voice," Jack whispered loudly to Noah. "I bet it's a huge voice. Like a dragon." Noah giggled. "She looks like a princess, Dad. Not a dragon." "You never know," Jack said. He turned to walk away. "Come on, Noah. Let's go fix the swing. The chain is rusted." "Wait," Evelyn said. She didn't know why she said it. It was against every instinct she had. But something about the way he had looked at Lily, like she was a person, not a patient, stopped her. Jack turned back. "Yeah. You're fixing the swing. City takes months to send a crew." Jack grinned, pulling a wrench from his back pocket. "I'm a carpenter. Figure I'd save the taxpayers some money. Unless you're gonna report me for unauthorized playground maintenance. Evelyn looked at his rugged face, the rain dripping from his hair. For the first time in 2 years, the ice around her heart cracked just a hairline fracture. No, Evelyn said softly. I won't report you. Good, Jack said. Hey, if you guys stick around, Noah needs a co-pilot for the seesaw. He's heavy, but I think your girl has the leverage. Evelyn looked down at Lily. Lily wasn't hiding. She was looking at Noah, and then she took a tiny step toward the seesaw. Evelyn's breath caught. We'll stick around, Evelyn said. For a few minutes. Jack smiled. It was a real smile, dazzling and warm. I'm Jack O'Connell, by the way. Evelyn, she said, omitting the Sinclair. I'm Evelyn. Nice to meet you, Evelyn. Let's see what happens. They had no idea that Richard Sterling's private investigator was sitting in a grey sedan 50 yards away, snapping photos with a telephoto lens. The photos of the billionaire CEO letting her daughter play in the mud with a blue-collar stranger would be on Richard's desk within the hour. And the war for Lily was about to begin. The rain had stopped completely, leaving the world washed clean and glistening. In the playground, the atmosphere shifted. It was no longer a damp, abandoned lot. It was a stage, and Jack O'Connell was the director. Evelyn watched from the edge of the sandbox, her heart hammering a rhythm she hadn't felt in years. She checked her phone, 3 missed calls from Thomas Grayson and 1 from her publicist. She silenced the device and slid it into her deep pocket. For the first time in a decade, the vibrating demand of $1 billion empire felt like a nuisance rather than a lifeline. Her eyes were fixed on the swing set. Jack was on one knee in the wet mulch, wrestling with a rusted bolt on the swing's chain. He wasn't just fixing it, he was performing a surgery. Scalpel Jack said seriously, holding out his hand without looking. Noah, his son, giggled and handed him a screwdriver. That's a screwdriver, Dad. Not a scalpel. In the field, soldier, we improvise, Jack grunted, twisting the tool. The metal groaned a high-pitched screech that made Evelyn wince, but Lily didn't flinch. She was standing 3 feet away, clutching the rabbit Jack had bandaged with his handkerchief. Her eyes were wide, tracking every movement of Jack's hands. Evelyn noticed the details of him, the way his flannel shirt strained against his back muscles as he applied torque, the grease smudge on his cheekbone, the scar running through his left eyebrow. He was raw, unfiltered, and completely unpretentious. He was the antithesis of Richard Sterling, who spent more on manicures than this man likely spent on rent. Okay, the patient is stable, Jack announced, standing up and wiping his hands on his jeans. He gave the swing a test push. It glided forward silently. No squeak. He turned to Lily. He dropped to one knee again, bringing himself to her eye level. He didn't invade her space. He stayed just outside the bubble of her personal zone. All right, Princess Jack, said his voice, dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. The vessel is airworthy, but I can't test it alone. I'm too heavy. I'll break the atmospheric stabilizers. I need a pilot who is light, aerodynamic, and brave. Do you know anyone like that? Lily stared at him. Her breathing hitched. She looked at the swing, then back at Jack. Evelyn held her breath. Don't push her, she prayed silently. Please don't push her. Jack didn't push. He just waited, his amber eyes filled with a patience that seemed infinite. He extended a hand, palm up, calloused and dirty, an invitation rather than a command. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, Lily took a step forward, then another. She placed her small, pale hand into Jack's rough one. Evelyn's hand flew to her mouth to stifle a gasp. Lily hadn't touched a stranger voluntarily since the accident. Jack led her to the swing. He didn't lift her. He steadied the seat so she could climb up herself. It was a small gesture of empowerment, but Evelyn noticed it. He treated her like she was capable. "Okay," Jack said, moving behind her. "We're initiating launch sequence. Noah, check the perimeter." "Perimeter clear," Noah shouted from the slide, saluting. "Engine check," Jack said. He pulled the swing back gently. "Ready?" Lily nodded, a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. Jack pushed. Lily swung forward. The air caught her blonde hair, blowing it back from her face. As she swung back, Jack caught her momentum gently and pushed again, harder this time. "Higher," Jack called out. Lily nodded again. "Higher." She nodded vigorously. Jack pushed her higher, his movements rhythmic and strong. Lily's feet kicked at the sky. For the first time in 2 years, the haunted look was gone from her eyes. She looked alive. Then Jack did something risky. He stopped pushing. He let the swing slow down until it came to a gentle halt. He walked around to the front of the swing and crouched down, holding the chains to stop it completely. He looked at Lily with a playful frown. "I've got a problem, pilot," Jack said, scratching his beard. "My radar is broken. I don't know where we're going. Are we going to the moon? Or are we going to Mars?" He waited. Lily looked at him, her legs swinging slightly. She pointed up. "Up isn't a destination," Jack teased gently. "I need coordinates. If we go to the moon, we get cheese. If we go to Mars, we get red rocks." Which one? Lily's mouth opened. She struggled. Evelyn could see the muscles in her throat working. The block was there, the psychological wall that had silenced her daughter for 730 days. Evelyn stepped forward, her maternal instinct screaming to save her daughter from the frustration. "She can't." Jack raised a hand, stopping Evelyn without looking at her. His focus was locked on Lily. "Take your time," Jack whispered to the girl. "I'm not going anywhere." The moon or Mars. The silence stretched. The sounds of the city, distant sirens, honking taxis, seemed to fade away, leaving only the sound of Lily's shallow breathing. Lily squeezed her eyes shut. Her fists clenched around the chains of the swing. She wanted it. Evelyn could see she wanted it. And then it happened. A sound so faint it was almost carried away by the wind. Evelyn froze. Her entire body went rigid. Jack didn't react with shock. He didn't gasp. He didn't cheer. He just smiled, a slow, wide grin that lit up his face. "The moon?" Jack asked, verifying. Lily opened her eyes. She looked straight at him. She took a deep breath, and this time the voice was clearer. Rusty, unused, but undeniably hers. "Moon," Lily said. Tears instantly flooded Evelyn's eyes, hot and fast. She clamped her hand over her mouth, her knees shaking so hard she thought she might collapse into the wet mulch. Moon. One word. The most beautiful word she had ever heard in her life. "The moon it is," Jack said triumphantly. "Initiating lunar trajectory." He pushed the swing. Moon. Lily shouted as she flew upward, a small cracked laugh escaping her lips. Moon. Noah yelled, running alongside her. Evelyn stood there, the rain from the trees dripping onto her designer coat, weeping silently. She watched the man in the flannel shirt push her daughter toward the sky. And in that moment, she knew her life had irrevocably changed. She wasn't looking at a carpenter. She was looking at the man who had just performed a miracle. After 10 minutes, the rain began to pick up again. Jack slowed the swing. "Mission accomplished," Jack said. "But the weather report says acid rain is incoming. We need to evacuate." He helped Lily down. She didn't pull away. She looked at him with hero worship in her eyes. Evelyn composed herself, wiping her face with the back of her hand. She walked over her heels, sinking into the soft ground. She felt stripped raw, vulnerable, in a way she hated yet incredibly grateful. "Jack," she said, her voice trembling. Jack turned. He saw the tears in her eyes. His expression softened. He understood. He didn't make a big deal out of it, which only made Evelyn appreciate him more. "She's a good pilot," Jack said simply. She hasn't spoken in 2 years," Evelyn choked out. "Not a word. Doctors, specialists, therapists, nobody could do it." Jack shrugged, rubbing the back of his neck. "Sometimes people just need to be heard, not fixed." She wanted to go to the moon. "I just gave her a ride." "I don't know how to thank you," Evelyn said. She reached into her purse. Her instinct was to pull out her checkbook, to write him a check for $1 million. It was how she solved everything. But looking at Jack, at his proud stance, his worn but clean clothes, she realized that offering him money right now would be an insult. It would cheapen the magic. Instead, she pulled out a simple business card. It was thick, cream-colored cardstock with gold embossing. Evelyn Sinclair, CEO, Sinclair and Company. "If you ever need anything," Evelyn said, handing it to him. "Anything at all." "Please." Jack took the card. He looked at it, his eyebrows raising slightly as he read the title. He looked from the card to Evelyn, reassessing her. The expensive coat, the shoes, the way she carried herself. The realization hit him. "Sinclair," he muttered. "As in, half the skyline." "Something like that," Evelyn said, a defensive wall going up slightly. Jack didn't cower. He didn't fawn. He just chuckled softly. "Well, Evelyn Sinclair, nice to meet you. I'm Jack." Just Jack. He pocketed the card. "Come on, Noah," he called. "Dinner time. I'm making mac and cheese with extra hot dogs." Yes, Noah pumped his fist. Jack looked back at Lily. "See you around, space pilot." Lily waved. A tiny, shy wave. Evelyn watched them walk away, a tall man and a little boy, disappearing into the grey mist of the city. She stood there until they were gone, holding her daughter's hand, feeling the warmth of the small fingers against hers. Moon Lily whispered again, looking up at her mother. "Yes, baby," Evelyn sobbed, picking her up and hugging her fiercely. "We went to the moon." The transition from the park to the penthouse was jarring. One moment Evelyn was breathing in the scent of rain and wet earth. The next she was enveloped in the sterile, lavender-scented air of the Sinclair building. As the private elevator doors slid open, reality came rushing back. Mrs. Gable was waiting in the foyer, pacing. When she saw Lily covered in mud and clutching a dirty rabbit, her eyes widened. "Oh my heavens, Miss Sinclair. Look at her. Is she hurt?" "She's fine." "Mrs. Gable." Evelyn said, her voice stronger than it had been in months. She set Lily down. "Actually, she's better than fine. Lily, tell Mrs. Gable where you went." Evelyn held her breath. Was it a fluke, a one-time occurrence? Lily looked at the nanny. She pointed a muddy finger upward. "Moon," she rasped. Mrs. Gable gasped, dropping the knitting needles she was holding. They clattered loudly on the marble floor. Did she just? She did. Evelyn beamed. "Get her a warm bath, please, and order whatever she wants for dinner, even if it's pizza." As Mrs. Gable ushered a confused but compliant Lily toward the bathroom, Evelyn walked into her home office. The high she felt from the park was beginning to fade, replaced by the crushing weight of the life she had built. She sat at her glass desk and looked at the stack of documents Sarah had left for her. Mergers, acquisitions, lawsuits. It all felt so trivial. She pulled Jack's image into her mind. The way he smiled, the way he didn't care who she was. She realized she didn't even know his last name. O'Connell, he had said. Jack O'Connell. She opened her laptop. She hesitated. It was an invasion of privacy. It was wrong. She typed Jack O'Connell, Carpenter, New York, into the search bar. Thousands of results. She narrowed it down. Jack O'Connell plus Noah. She found a Facebook profile. It was sparse. A profile picture of a man in a hard hat, holding a baby. The date was 6 years ago. The status was widowed. Evelyn felt a pang of sympathy. So he's raising the boy alone. Just like me. Her reverie was broken by the sharp ring of her cell phone. The private line. She picked it up without checking the ID, expecting Mrs. Gable. "Hello. Playing in the mud." "Evelyn." "Really?" The voice was smooth, arrogant, and instantly raised the hairs on the back of Evelyn's neck. "Richard, how do you know that Evelyn demanded standing up?" She walked to the window, scanning the streets below, paranoia seizing her chest. "I have eyes everywhere, darling." You know that Richard chuckled. "I just received a very interesting portfolio of photographs. You looking like a drowned rat. Our daughter filthy interacting with some homeless person." "A vagrant." "He's not a vagrant," Evelyn snapped. "He's a carpenter. And he did more for Lily in 20 minutes than you did in 4 years. Careful, Evelyn. Richard's voice turned cold. I'm building a case. Unstable behavior. Exposing the child to unvetted, dangerous individuals in unsecured public locations. It paints a picture of a mother who is unraveling. I am not unraveling. Evelyn shouted her hand, gripping the phone so hard it hurt. The courts might disagree. I'm filing for an emergency custody hearing tomorrow morning. I want full custody, Evelyn. I'm going to take her. And I'm going to put her in that Swiss boarding school where she belongs, away from your chaotic influence. You touch her, and I will kill you. Evelyn, hissed the venom in her voice, real. Save the drama for the judge. See you in court. The line went dead. Evelyn dropped the phone onto the desk. She felt like the room was spinning. The Swiss boarding school. It was a place for forgotten children. Richard didn't want Lily. He wanted to stash her away, so he didn't have to look at her. So he didn't have to be reminded of his broken daughter. He wanted to hurt Evelyn by taking the only thing she truly loved. She paced the room. She needed a lawyer. She had lawyers. She had an army of them. But Richard was a shark. He knew how to twist perception. If he had photos of Jack, a scruffy, unknown man touching Lily, he would spin it as child endangerment. He would claim Evelyn was reckless. She needed to control the narrative. She needed to know who Jack was. If Richard dug up dirt on Jack, a criminal record, a bad debt, anything, he would use it to prove Evelyn was exposing Lily to danger. She hit the intercom button. Sarah. Yes, Ms. Sinclair. I thought you were off the clock. I need a background check. Immediate priority. Level 5 clearance. On who Jack O'Connell. Resides in, likely Queens or Brooklyn. Has a son named Noah. Carpenter. I'm on it. I'll have the file in an hour. Evelyn sank into her leather chair. She felt a strange mix of guilt and desperation. She was investigating the man who had saved her daughter, but she had to be sure. She had to know he was safe. She had to know he wasn't a weapon Richard could use against her. An hour later, her email pinged. Evelyn opened the file. Her eyes scanned the PDF rapidly. Name: Jack Thomas O'Connell. D.O.B. March 12, 1988. Address: 442 Elm Street, Astoria, Queens. Occupation: independent contractor / carpenter. Financials: heavy debt, multiple liens on his property. Medical bills outstanding. Evelyn frowned. He was broke. That explained the clothes. She scrolled down to the criminal record section. Her heart stopped. Charge: aggravated assault. Grievous bodily harm. Date: 4 years ago. Status: served 18 months in Rikers Island. Evelyn stared at the screen. The man who had gently tied a handkerchief around a toy rabbit. The man who had made her daughter speak. He was a convict, a violent felon. If Richard found this, and he would destroy her. He would tell the judge she let a violent ex-con play with their mute daughter. She closed the laptop. She felt sick. But then she remembered Lily's voice. Moon. She remembered Jack's eyes. They weren't the eyes of a monster. There was more to this story. Evelyn Sinclair didn't become a billionaire by taking data at face value. She made deals by reading people. And her read on Jack O'Connell was that he was a good man. She checked the address again. Astoria. She stood up. She couldn't wait for the lawyers. She couldn't wait for court. She had to go to the source. She had to know the truth about the assault, and she had to warn him. Mrs. Gable Evelyn called out, grabbing her coat. I'm going out again. But it's nearly dark, Ms. Sinclair. I won't be long. Keep the doors locked. The drive to Astoria took 40 minutes. Evelyn drove herself in her secondary car, a grey Audi SUV that drew less attention than the Maybach. She found the address easily. It was a small, dilapidated row house sandwiched between a laundromat and a bodega. The paint was peeling, and the front porch sagged, but there were flower boxes in the windows, clearly Noah's doing, filled with bright, chaotic wildflowers. Evelyn parked across the street. She felt absurd. She was the CEO of a global conglomerate sitting in a car in Queens, stalking a carpenter. She saw a light on in the front room. The curtains were open. She could see inside. It was a small living room, cluttered but cozy. She saw Jack sitting on a worn-out sofa. Noah was asleep on his lap, his head resting on Jack's chest. Jack was reading a book, holding it with one hand while the other stroked Noah's hair. The domestic intimacy of the scene hit Evelyn like a physical blow. It was everything she had in her bank account, yet everything she lacked in her life. She took a deep breath, exited the car, and crossed the street. She walked up the creaky steps and knocked softly on the door. Jack looked up, startled. He gently shifted Noah off his lap, tucking a pillow under the boy's head, and walked to the door. He opened it. He was wearing a grey t-shirt now, and he looked tired. When he saw Evelyn, his eyes widened in genuine shock. "Evelyn, is everything okay? Is Lily okay?" His first concern was Lily. Not, "Why are you here?" Not, "How did you find me?" But is the child okay? Evelyn felt the tension in her shoulders relax slightly. "She's fine," Evelyn said. "She's sleeping." She ate 3 slices of pizza. Jack smiled, leaning against the doorframe. Pizza. The universal cure. So to what do I owe the pleasure? "Did you come to fire me from the playground?" "Can I come in?" Evelyn asked. "We need to talk. It's important." Jack hesitated, looking back at sleeping Noah. "Sure. Keep your voice down. The walls are thin." He stepped back. Evelyn walked into the small house. It smelled of sawdust and cinnamon. It was clean, but the poverty was evident. The furniture was second-hand. The carpet was threadbare. "Nice place," Evelyn lied politely. "It's a dump." Jack laughed softly, closing the door. "But it's ours. Do you want a beer? It's the cheap stuff." "No, thank you." Evelyn turned to face him. She decided to be direct. It was the only way she knew how to operate. "Jack, my ex-husband, is suing for full custody of Lily." Jack's smile faded. His face hardened. "I'm sorry to hear that. He sounds like a piece of work." "He is. He's having me followed. He had a private investigator at the park today. He has photos of you and Lily." Jack's jaw tightened. And he's going to use them. He's going to claim I'm endangering her by letting her associate with strangers. Evelyn paused. She looked him in the eye. Strangers with criminal records. The silence in the room was deafening. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. Jack didn't deny it. He didn't look away. He just sikhed a long, weary sound that seemed to come from the depths of his soul. "You ran a background check," he stated. "I had to. I have to protect my daughter." "I get it," Jack said. He walked over to the window and looked out at the street. Aggravated assault. Sounds bad on paper. It is bad on paper, Jack. You went to Rikers. Jack turned around. His eyes were blazing now, not with anger at her, but with an old, cold fury. "Do you want to know what happened? Or do you just want to judge me?" "I want to know," Evelyn said. "Because my gut tells me you're not a violent man. And I always trust my gut." Jack ran a hand through his hair. 4 years ago. Noah was 3. My wife, Sarah, she was sick. Cancer. We had insurance, but the company denied the claim for her treatment. Experimental, they said. Too expensive. He paced the small room. I went to the insurance office. I just wanted to talk to the adjuster, the guy who signed the denial. His name was Mr. Henderson. I begged him. I told him she was dying. He laughed at me, Evelyn. He actually laughed. He told me to get a better job if I wanted to save my wife. Jack's voice cracked. I lost it. I jumped the desk. I broke his jaw. I broke his nose. I didn't stop hitting him until security pulled me off. He looked at Evelyn, tears shimmering in his eyes. Sarah died while I was awaiting trial. I missed her passing. I was in a holding cell because I couldn't make bail. Noah went into foster care for 18 months until I got out and fought to get him back. Evelyn stood frozen. The story washed over her a wave of tragedy and injustice that made her own problems seem petty. He had fought for his wife. He had lost everything. And he was raising his son in this run-down house, fixing playgrounds for free, and helping mute little girls find their voices. Jack Evelyn whispered, "I'm so sorry. I'm not a danger to your daughter." "Evelyn," Jack said quietly, "I'm just a guy who couldn't save his wife. But if you want me to stay away, I will. I don't want to cause trouble for you." Evelyn looked at him. She saw the pain, the integrity, and the strength. She made a decision. It was the riskiest business decision of her life. "No," Evelyn said firmly. Jack looked up. "No, I don't want you to stay away. In fact, I'm going to hire you." Jack blinked. "Hire me to do what? Fix your cabinets?" "No." Evelyn stepped closer. The air between them crackled. "I'm going to hire you as Lily's private recreational therapist and specialized construction consultant. You're going to build a playground in my backyard. A real one. Better than the city park. Evelyn with my record. I don't care about your record. I own the company. I hire who I want. And if Richard brings it up in court, we will tell the truth. We will tell the judge why you did it. Let him try to villainize a man who fought for his dying wife against a corrupt insurance company. I have the best PR team in the city. We'll turn you into a folk hero before Richard can even utter the word felon." Jack stared at her. For a moment he looked like he might argue. But then a slow smile spread across his face. "You're terrifying. You know that I've been told." Evelyn smiled back, a genuine, soft smile. "So will you help us? Lily needs you. And I think I might need you too." Jack looked at Noah sleeping on the couch. Then he looked back at Evelyn. "When do I start?" "Tomorrow morning. 8 a.m. Wear the flannel." Evelyn turned to leave her hand on the doorknob. "Evelyn," Jack called out. She turned back. "Thank you," he said. "No, Jack," she replied. "Thank you for the moon." She walked out into the cool night air. She had a plan. She had an ally. And, for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of the fight ahead. She was ready to go to war. But little did she know Richard Sterling had one more card to play. One that involved the very insurance company Jack had attacked, a company that was a subsidiary of Sinclair and Company. The twist was waiting in the shadows. The following 2 weeks were the happiest in the history of the Sinclair penthouse. Jack O'Connell didn't just build a playground. He built a sanctuary. He arrived every morning at 8 a.m., treating Lily not like a fragile patient, but like a capable apprentice. He handed her sandpaper and taught her the names of tools, and Lily blossomed. She wasn't just speaking single words anymore. She was forming sentences. "Pass the hammer, Jack. Look, Mummy." Evelyn, watching from the terrace, found herself falling for the rough-edged carpenter who had brought life back to her silent home. It wasn't just gratitude, it was love. One Thursday evening, as the sun set over the nearly finished moon-base treehouse, Evelyn handed Jack a beer on the terrace. The project was done. The air was warm, and the tension of the upcoming custody hearing felt miles away. "You saved me too." "Evelyn," Jack whispered, looking at her with an intensity that made her knees weak. "I was just drifting. You gave me a purpose." They kissed. It was soft, desperate, and filled with a promise of a future Evelyn hadn't dared to imagine. For a moment, she wasn't a CEO. She was just a woman who had found her match. The spell was shattered by the chime of the elevator. Sarah, Evelyn's assistant, rushed onto the terrace, looking flustered. Ms. Sinclair. A courier just dropped this off. It's the evidence file from Mr. Sterling's office. It's marked urgent. Evelyn tore open the manila envelope. Jack stood beside her. His presence a comforting weight as she scanned the documents Richard intended to use in court. There were photos of the playground and financial records. Then she turned a page and froze. It was a copy of an insurance denial letter from Guardian Life. The patient's name was Sarah O'Connell. Jack Evelyn's voice trembled. "This is your wife's policy." Jack frowned, taking the paper. Why does Richard have this? Why is this in a custody file? Evelyn read the attached legal memo. Argument for negligence. Ms. Sinclair knowingly employs the man who assaulted an adjuster for her own subsidiary Guardian Life. The blood drained from Evelyn's face. She looked at the date on the denial. It was signed 3 weeks after Sinclair & Co. had acquired the insurance firm. "Oh my God," Evelyn whispered. "Jack, I own Guardian Life. We bought them 4 years ago." The warmth vanished from Jack's eyes, instantly replaced by a horrifying realization. He stepped back from her, as if she were radioactive. "You own them?" Jack's voice was unrecognizable. "The company that denied Sarah's treatment, the cost-saving measure that killed my wife, that came from you I didn't know." Evelyn pleaded, reaching for him. "Jack, it's a massive conglomerate. I don't see every claim." "My wife died, so you could buy a third house." Jack spat, his eyes blazing with tears and fury. "Is that why you hired me? Was this guilt charity?" "No, I hired you because you saved Lily." "Don't," Jack snapped. "You don't know what saving someone means. I can't look at you, Evelyn. Every time I do, I see the signature on her death warrant. Jack, please, Lily needs you." "Noah, let's go," Jack yelled, grabbing his son from the living room. He didn't look back. He walked into the elevator and out of her life. Evelyn stood alone on the terrace, surrounded by the luxury that had cost Jack everything. Richard hadn't just sued her. He had played the ultimate card, destroying her happiness by revealing that the monster Jack hated most in the world was Evelyn herself. Monday morning arrived with the crushing weight of a funeral. Inside the Manhattan family court, Evelyn Sinclair sat in a severe black suit looking hollow. Lily sat behind her, silent and withdrawn, clutching her rabbit. She hadn't spoken a word since Jack had walked out 3 days ago. Richard Sterling sat at the plaintiff's table smirking. His lawyer was ruthless, painting Evelyn as a negligent workaholic who had endangered her special needs child by exposing her to a violent felon. Ms. Sinclair knowingly brought a man with a conviction for grievous bodily harm into the home, the lawyer argued. She left her mute, vulnerable daughter alone with him. This demonstrates a catastrophic lapse in judgment. Judge Harrison. A stern woman peered over her glasses. "Ms. Sinclair, is it true you hired Mr. O'Connell without a background check?" "I acted on instinct." "Your Honor," Evelyn pleaded. "He helped my daughter when no one else could." And yet the judge noted, glancing at the silent child. "Your daughter has regressed. I am inclined to grant temporary custody to Mr. Sterling so she can be admitted to the Geneva Institute." Evelyn felt the walls closing in. She was going to lose Lily to a boarding school because of the poison in her own empire. Suddenly, the heavy oak doors at the back of the courtroom banged open. "Objection!" A deep voice boomed. Jack O'Connell stood in the aisle wearing a cheap, ill-fitting suit. He looked tired and furious, but he was there. Despite Richard's demands to have the criminal removed, Judge Harrison was intrigued. She allowed him to take the stand. Jack didn't look at Evelyn. He looked straight at the judge. "I am a danger to people who hurt my family." Jack said, his voice rough. "I made a mistake 4 years ago and I paid for it. But Evelyn Sinclair isn't a danger. She creates profit. Yes, her machine chewed me up. But when it comes to that little girl, she isn't a CEO. She's a mom who was terrified. She let a carpenter into her life because she saw a spark in her daughter's eyes. A bad mother wouldn't have noticed." Richard sneered. "Touching. But the fact remains the girl is mute. Your experiment failed." Jack leaned forward, his eyes locking onto Lily's. "Why don't you ask her?" "She can't speak." Richard laughed. Jack didn't waver. "Captain," he said clearly to the little girl. "Status report." The courtroom went dead silent. Lily stood up, squeezing her rabbit. She looked at Richard, then at the judge, and finally at Evelyn. She took a deep breath. Not broken." Lily's voice rasped, small but undeniable. Richard's jaw dropped. Lily turned to Evelyn and reached out her hand. "Mommy. Home." Evelyn sobbed, grabbing Lily's hand. Jack looked at the judge. "She speaks when she feels safe, Your Honor. If you send her away, you'll silence her forever." Judge Harrison slammed the gavel. "Motion for custody denied. Mr. Sterling, your visitation is suspended pending a psychological evaluation. Court is adjourned." Outside on the courthouse steps, Evelyn found Jack lighting a cigarette, his hand shaking slightly. "Jack," she said. "You kept custody," he said, not meeting her eyes. "That's good. She belongs with you." "I'm selling Guardian Life," Evelyn said abruptly. Jack froze. He turned to look at her. "I made the call this morning. I'm liquidating the division." Evelyn continued, her voice steady. "And I'm establishing a foundation in Sarah O'Connell's name. It's starting with $50 million to provide emergency grants for families denied by insurance. I can't fix what the machine did to your wife, Jack, but I can break the machine. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure no one else has to go through what you did." Jack stared at her, searching for the lie. He found only raw sincerity. The anger in his shoulders began to dissipate. $50 million, Jack asked softly. "That's a lot of chemo." "It's a start." Evelyn stepped closer. "I don't expect you to forgive me. But Lily misses her co-pilot, and I miss my friend." Jack looked over Evelyn's shoulder to see Lily and Noah jumping down the steps together. He sighed, a half smile finally tugging at his lips. "I can't leave the moon base unfinished," he said. "It needs a roof." Evelyn smiled through her tears. "Then you better come to work tomorrow. 8 a.m. "Yes, ma'am." Jack reached out and took her hand. A rough, calloused hand holding a manicured one. Two different worlds finally bridging the gap. And that is how a broken swing and a broken heart came together to heal a silence that money couldn't fix. Evelyn learned that power isn't about controlling the world. It's about changing it for the people you love. And Jack proved that sometimes the strongest thing a man can do is forgive. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button. It really helps us share these stories with more people. What would you have done in Jack's shoes? Could you have forgiven Evelyn? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a story that moves you. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.